Before Mo's arrival, Kong Tang awakened her spatial powers, and a total of 10,000 square meters of land and materials recognized her. Just when she thought she was some kind of chosen daughter, she turned into a zombie on the day Mo's arrival. She was so angry that she lay in bed for 10 days. She was going to turn into a zombie at the beginning, so why give her a standard role as a protagonist? She was so angry that the zombie could not speak. Only ABA made her so angry that she kicked her legs on the bed. Finally, she found that she didn't even need to eat to survive, and she wanted to cry even more. Mo started. She hoarded a warehouse full of delicious food but turned out to be a zombie who couldn't even eat a bite. She was about to cry without tears. As for why there were no tears, because zombies had no tears at all. She had no choice but to keep her mouth shut. She reluctantly took out the snacks and dried dumplings. Sure enough, she could only taste a few of them, which made her heart feel cold. When she was so angry in the room that she died repeatedly. More than half a month has passed for Mo. She has no idea about the situation in the outside world. She only knows that there is no trace of living people in this community. There are more and more zombies gathering downstairs, and there are even mutants that can climb the walls. But survivors still exist. She can hear them searching for supplies during the day. The official rescue operation finally begins. She silently touched her heart, which was cold. Without a heartbeat, no one could save her. For other survivors, rescue was a great hope, but for her, it meant that her life was coming to an end. She actually calmly accepted this fact. Suddenly, intensive gunfire sounded downstairs in the community. The survivors in the building burst into cheers. I don't know how long it took. Operation Qingjiao spread to her building. The sound of fighting could be heard downstairs. Suddenly she heard a familiar voice speaking from Qingjiao Maru Wall on the 7th floor of Building A in Qingyuan community. As soon as she heard the words Akaku Marubi, the whole city trembled, and a sense of fear surged into her heart. It would be her turn soon. Was she really going to die? Her whole body, no, the whole city was numb, and she wanted to cry, but the zombies couldn't squeeze out a single tear. A steady sound of footsteps penetrated the wall, and a gunshot sounded. The screams of the zombies were heard next door. This zombie is so ugly. The howling thief is annoying. I shot him in the head. Xiaobai, what's the situation over there? It's all solved. I'm hungry. I want to eat hot pot. It has to be the kind that'll burn your brain. This carefree voice is so light. There's a damn sense of familiarity in her casual words. She's immersed in reporting for a play as an ostrich. When Shangjing raised her head in confusion. My side is fast. Can be done in half an hour at most. Lao Wang notified the convoy to pick up the letter holder. Hey, why is the door of this house so difficult to open? When she heard this, she was frightened fiercely. No matter if she was familiar with it or not, her nickname was going to be lost. Just when she thought about Abba and Abba, she remembered that the man thought the neighbor next door was annoying him. She quickly covered her mouth tightly. She sat on the bed shivering, waiting for the other party to send her on her way. That's right, she didn't have the guts to kill herself, so she might as well wait to be shot. In order to avoid a more tragic death in the future, because she was no longer a human being, she felt heartbroken when she thought of this. But when the door was violently kicked open, her whole room could not help but tremble wildly. The next second, she was shocked by the other party's brute force. How could anyone kick open her security door? The broken door was so painful that it was difficult to kick. Well, no one lived in this house. It was quite clean. It was like a model tip. However, the other person did not stop. She immediately shrank into an ostrich and continued to bury her head and tremble. From now on, the final judgment would come. She heard that the person did not go to the storage room and kitchen. Instead, she walked toward her bedroom in silence. The footsteps seemed to step on her heart and shoulders. She was so nervous that she was about to explode. Bang, the security door was pushed open, and then she heard the clear sound of a gun being loaded. There was a click. The familiar voice sounded again. Are there any wounds on the body? Have they been bitten by zombies? Are there any signs of mutation? Please answer truthfully. She still buried her head and pretended to be dead. She even wanted to dive into the quilt next to her and hide. Then she heard the other party's impatient scolding voice, and her tone instantly became serious. Didn't you hear me asking you to answer the question? Sanli Special Operations Team is the official search and rescue team. Madam, your silence may delay the best rescue time. Do you understand? She is wondering why the other party is so kind. The next second, the man came over carelessly and lifted her up from the bed. She was so frightened that her body became stiff. After all, her eyes continued to pretend to be dead. but the other person's flirtatious voice came to her ears. The familiar rising sound of the little squad leader and the casual tone also contained a bit of surprise of meeting again after a long absence. She finally slowly opened her eyes and looked at the person who was about to judge her. As a result, as soon as she opened her eyes, she bumped into an enlarged, handsome face. The two of them stared at each other for a moment. Before the other party could say anything, another shocked "fuck" sound came from her tactical ears. Who is the squad leader? Brother Chin, are you thinking that our squad leader is crazy? Chin cut off the ear pulse impatiently, looked at her carefully, and tentatively changed the conductor. The hall was empty. She was completely numb. Her slow brain finally caught up. It was really exciting to meet old classmates again. This guy was still such a fool. She looked at Chin Yi's combat uniform. This guy is still so tall. His childlike facial features have faded away and he looks more handsome. He is able to dazzle all the little girls. I think this guy was just a laugher at the time. She is the squad leader because of her thorny copper table. It was really heartbreaking. She wanted to say hello coolly, but she could only open her mouth to say ABA. So she decisively chose to close her pulse. Chin Yi looked at her excitedly like a big golden retriever. After not seeing her for so many years, the squad leader has changed a bit. As soon as she thought about it, she noticed something strange about her body, such as the biting coldness. She frowned, and the next second his big hand went to her neck. All she saw was a trail of death and no pulse. She thought for a moment that she was going to kill her, and then she realized that this was trying to detect her pulse. Her heart was filled with mixed emotions. The former schoolmate who was a scumbag is now eating in the public service and has become a special operations team member. Lao Li should be happy to know this. Isn't your little brain quite bright? Why didn't he even take it out? Chin Yi murmured regretfully. But what happened to his tone and expression that he wanted to be beaten? She instantly glared at him with a cold eyebrow and an angry look. Just like when he was urging him to hand in his homework, Chin Yi was amused. By the way, he almost forgot about the business. She put away her smile and started to search for something in the room. She started to tremble uncontrollably again. She must be looking for a feng shui treasure to kill her. She quickly closed her eyes and pretended to be dead. Chin Yi scanned the body but couldn't find any useful tools. So he simply picked up a small blanket and saw her eyes closed and shaking into a sieve. He breathed a sigh of relief and directly tied her up with a stone. She closed her eyes and felt the restraint. She thought that she was probably afraid that she would die ugly after struggling, so she wanted to leave her some dignity. She opened her eyes and felt grateful for the day. Suddenly I felt that this person was pretty good. Chin Yi's expression suddenly became complicated. Why is the squad leader who turned into a zombie a bit perverted? He was tied up and still looked grateful. Who can withstand this? Do you want to come with me or stay here and wait to die? Nonsense. Who wants to die if you can live? She was so frightened by these words that she nodded frantically. She felt that her stiff neck had become much more flexible. Seeing this, she nodded with satisfaction and put Guoqing Banbao on her shoulder and walked out carelessly. Okay, I'll take you away. I never thought you could fall into my hands one day. Is that right, squad leader? She chose to answer with silence, burying her face on her shoulder and continuing to pretend to be dead. If she hadn't turned into a zombie, she would have cried because of such a straight man carrying a sack. She looked hopeless at the moment, but Chin Yi was very excited. He carried her 3 steps and sat down 2 steps before rushing downstairs. Only then did she realize that something was wrong. Even Chin Yi was a special operations team member. But her physical fitness is so incredible. She can clear a building without even taking a breath. Moreover, the speed of going downstairs is not what a human should be. She can even easily cross an entire flight of stairs. It was simply outrageous. 2 words popped out of her slow brain. Evolution and delayed reaction. The survival manual Chin Yi mentioned was sent by a group from the headquarters, indicating that she and Sister Lu were not the only ones who received the text messages and became ill. This was a premeditated disaster. This thought exploded in her mind. Her whole body was shaken, and she fully understood that the situation would only get worse and worse in the future. It happened that Chin Yi was too lazy to run up the stairs. On the 3rd floor, she actually jumped out of the window with her on his back and landed firmly on the ground on the 1st floor. She happened to tilt her head and look at the gray sky. It seems that I haven't seen the sun for a long time. Only the brilliant beams of light occasionally cut through the sky. The community downstairs has long been beyond recognition. The walls are eaten away and covered with filth. Even the green plants were covered with thick dust and looked lifeless. The survivors huddled on a piece of pure land, shivering and feeling surprised and happy. People from other caves also came to join them one after another. Regardless of any grievances before, I can't care about it at the moment. This is the sound of reports coming from the distant channel. Wang Hu of the 3 Special Operations Team reports that the feet of Whole B in Qingrun community have been cleaned. The White Rat of the 3 Special Operations Team reports that the feet of Whole C in Qingrun community have been cleaned. The Flying Eagle of the 3 Special Operations Team reports that the feet of Whole D of Qingrun community have been cleaned. He stared blankly at the source of the sound, and a voice of affection came to his ears. The 3 Special Operations Teams reported affection. The foot cleaning in Whole A in Qingrun community had been completed. This report ignited hope. Proving that they had not been given up, the survivors suddenly burst out in frustration, then burst into tears. Some hugged each other and cried, while others screamed the names of their loved ones. There was a feeling of sourness and confusion in his heart. Where would the future be? Only these shoulders were reliable, and the body temperature of his old classmates did give him a touch of warmth. His consciousness gradually became drowsy. In his daze, he felt that someone was surrounding him. He heard a few WTF sounds filled with exclamations. Words such as little squad leader and relief supplies floated into his ears. Then he completely lost consciousness. When he regained consciousness again, he found himself lying in a car. He blinked and stared at the roof of the car. Brother Qin, you really want to take our squad leader with you. But he has turned into a zombie. Bai Yueguang is different. He can't bear to let go even after he turns into a zombie. But this zombie of the squad leader is so special. He can actually sleep. This is not mentioned in the headquarters manual. No, I have to study that manual carefully. He had just regained consciousness when he heard a burst of laughter from the car. How's it going, Brother Qin? Is the squad leader still as good-looking as before? A head suddenly came closer, but the next second he was pushed away impatiently by a big hand. It was Qin Yi. Only then did he realize that he was being hugged tightly by Qin Yi. However, his friends were not afraid at all. Instead, they laughed louder. Who is it every time, truth or dare? It is said that the squad leader is your first love. As soon as these words came out, Qin Yi was furious on the spot. He glared at his friend fiercely. Then, without saying a word, he just took him and walked to the last row. I would rather squeeze together with supplies than listen to the ridicule of these bad friends anymore. Listening to the hilarious laughter in the front row, the empty hall was a little dazed. Aren't these voices the same group of people who had the best time with Qin Yi? Unexpectedly, at this moment, Qin Luo suddenly lowered his voice and said in his ear, "Wake up! Don't listen to their nonsense. It's all nonsense." He actually knew that he was awake. Looking at his shocked expression, Qin Yi proudly pointed to his eyes. You know what I mean now, I can see at night. Before he could react, Qin Yi snapped his fingers again. The fingertips instantly flashed with blue electricity. One of my skill points. He was completely stunned by the scene in front of him. The real power was far more shocking than the words in the manual. As a result, just when he was about to take a closer look, the carriage was suddenly hit hard. Kong Dang awakened his space powers before the indifference came, and a full 10,000 square meters of land and materials slashed his legs. Just when he thought he was the chosen one, if the day came, he directly transformed into a zombie. He was so angry that he lay in bed for 10 days, and he would turn into a zombie in the end. Then what's the point of giving him a protagonist's standard space? It's really annoying. He can't speak, he only knows ABA ABA. Just when he was suspicious of losing his voice, the car was suddenly hit hard. There was a piercing cry of elephants outside. If he hadn't been a zombie now, he would have gotten goosebumps. Wang Hu, who was driving the car, cursed Oppo. The elephant in the zoo ran out. Bai Shu immediately picked up a tablet. Shin Qinglangjuan said, "The mutation has no degree of alienation." The next second, Chun Xiaofei stared at the rearview mirror and reported calmly, "The degree of alienation is level 1. The limbs were strengthened and the hair grew." Before he finished speaking, Qingyi suddenly threw a sniper rifle. Bai Shu opened the skylight after receiving the gun. Chun Xiaofei hugged his legs to steady his body. Then there was the sound of gunshots. The mutated elephant screamed, but still chased the car and slammed into it. The survivors on the bus screamed wildly. However, Bai Shu's marksmanship was quick and accurate, and the battle was resolved with a few shots. Wang Hu was relieved, and the three of them were extremely calm. The world is really going crazy. At this moment, Qingyi glanced at it. The data on the watch suddenly spoke. "There will be a thunderstorm in 10 minutes. Find a place to hide." The others nodded in tacit agreement. 8 minutes later, the motorcade drove directly into a factory area. Wang Hu and the others immediately got out of the car and lost their feet. Kong Tang was stuffed into the back seat by Qingyi. He specifically told him before leaving, "It's dangerous at night in the apocalypse. Don't run around." What's going on with this tone of voice that scares children? He screamed so madly in his heart that he wanted to run away and buy it for himself. However, the reality was that Kong Tang could only watch in silence as he closed the car door. Soon there was a fierce fight and the screams of survivors outside. 10 minutes later, Qingyi suddenly opened the car door and took him into his arms. Hey, those little eyes are so intense. He actually dragged and hugged Kong Tang like a child. He could only hold his neck tightly. This was much more comfortable than being carried, so he held him tight and wouldn't let go. By this time, the factory area had been cleaned. Wang, who was settling the survivors, and then Chun Xiaofei came over and whispered to Qingyi, "Love song. There are still many cans in the warehouse that are not contaminated. This is great news." But Chun Xiaofei had a sad look on his face because none of the 4 of them had 500 cubic meters of storage cards in total. So they couldn't hold much. "We could only get points if we asked the headquarters to pick it up. But if you contact Zhang Ainen from Team B, although his space is large, he has to take away 50% of it to give it to the headquarters. He is unwilling to give it to outsiders and it would be a huge loss." Now everyone is in a dilemma. Just when Chun Xiaofei had a headache, his eyes were fixed on Kong Tang. Immediately Chun Xiaofei's eyes lit up and he immediately stepped forward and said hello to Kong Tang. "Hello, squad leader, the most beautiful one among the zombies." She winked at him and gave him a thumbs up. Qingyi burst out laughing when he saw Kong Tang's embarrassed expression. "Ha ha ha ha, he dislikes you." At this moment Bai Shu also came back. There are 3 in the warehouse, 2 meat cans and 1 fruit. He tried to push up his glasses out of habit, but they came up empty. Only then did he stop laughing. His eyes were clear and he no longer needed that thing. Then Qingyi picked up Kong Tang and said, "Let's go over and see what to do." Chun Xiaofei immediately followed up and curiously asked, "Brother Qin, let him down and take a few steps. I'll see what's different between him and other zombies." But Qingyi lowered his head and glanced at the empty hall in his arms, which was looking around. I ignored him at all. When Bai Shu saw this, he said something coldly. "I think someone is so rare that he can't bear to let go." Qingyi's ears instantly turned red visibly to the naked eye. The 3 of them bickered and came to the big warehouse. But when Bai Shu opened the door, all the joking stopped. The warehouse was hundreds of square meters, and the cans piled up were all packed in boxes. However, after the ecstasy, there is a huge problem. The storage space of the 4 of them combined cannot hold so much. What's even worse is that they always have no shortage of storage cards. The headquarters knew exactly how much stuff was stored and couldn't hide it privately. Chun Xiaofei was instantly stunned. He looked at the can of Dashin and wailed, "Oh my god! Why don't we have any teammates from the space department? In the future, eat less supplies. Do you really need to drink nutrient solution every day?" Bai Shu also frowned. He would probably be intercepted by others when he went up to the headquarters. But just when everyone was at a loss, Kong Tang understood. He knew that he had to show his value, otherwise he would be no different from the zombies who were shot in the head. So the next second he suddenly patted Qingyi on the shoulder. Then he raised his hand and pointed at the mountain of cans, and made a sound of Abba, but he immediately closed his mouth. Chun Xiaofei was the first to notice that something was wrong, and he screamed strangely. "Damn, Brother Qin, the squad leader has spoken. Oh my god." He screams so cutely. "It hurts." Bai Shu slaps him directly on the head. "Can you praise the squad leader?" Qingyi was too lazy to pay attention to the 2 heiresses. He looked down at Kong Tang in his arms. "Do you want to eat a can?" He was also shocked until the next second. Kong Tang's fingers lightly touched the can. In an instant, a whole row of cans disappeared out of thin air. Suddenly, the whole warehouse fell into an eerie silence. The next second, the 3 of them said angrily, "F***CK," and Chun Xiaofei screamed, "Ah, Brother Qin, am I dazzled?" Bai Shu rubbed his eyes crazily. The whole worldview was exploding. How could zombies have superpowers? Qingyi was so frightened that he couldn't tell. His voice was tight and he immediately ordered. Xiao Bai Xiaofei went to see if it was really gone or if it was just a deception. Kong Tang sighed helplessly and waited patiently for them to go over and investigate. As a result, the 2 people were shuttled back and forth in the open space. No shit, the cans were really taken away. In order to prove himself, after they came back, Kong Tang let the cans out to the open space and took them back again. He went back and forth several times. This time, the 3 of them were stunned on the spot. In the end, Qingyi covered his face in shock and joy. Okay, I know you have powers, so don't demonstrate." Only then did Kong Tang put his hands firmly around Qingyi's neck. His idea now is very simple. This mobile tool man must hug his thighs tightly. Chen Xiaofei is still doubting life. Help, the space of Xiaobansang is not small. Then do we have to save his life? Qin Yi looked away with a nonsensical look. Bai Shu calmed down and his eyes were bright. The most important thing now was to figure out how big his space was. In an instant, Chen Xiaofei's Taihe golden dog eyes also lit up. Kong Tang was so stared at that he quickly shrank into Qin Yi's arms, but he also wanted to collect supplies to prove his worth. So he patted Qin Yi again and pointed to another pile of cans. Next is the moment to witness the miracle. Qin Yi pointed at the empty hall and walked over obediently with long legs. After collecting pile after pile, Chen Xiaofei's expression changed from surprise to shock. In the end, he was completely numb. Bai Shu's CPU almost burned out. He started inserting beans violently. We are now stable. The squad leader is a mobile giant warehouse. But Qin Yi muttered in a low voice as he walked, "Is it okay? Don't overdo it. You will become a little fool later." He glanced at him speechlessly and patted him to indicate that he should continue. Qin Yi looked at his little eyes and couldn't help laughing. He suddenly asked softly, "I didn't expect to meet you. How are you doing after graduation?" Kong Tong's movements paused for a moment. He actually wanted to ask him something. Why did he suddenly go to the army? But he couldn't say anything. It was too embarrassing to open his mouth and say ABA ABA. So he kept silent and just collected supplies frantically. Every small space was instantly filled with various cans. However, Qin Yi didn't need him to answer at all. He muttered a few words to himself and continued to carry him away. Then he packed up like crazy and emptied the entire warehouse. His words in between were echoed. Chen Xiaofei felt so happy that he immediately ran to search for the next warehouse. Just when they arrived at the second warehouse, there was a loud bang in front of them and the ground trembled. The dark clouds in the distance were terrifying. Lightning danced wildly in the clouds. The next second, a thunder ripped through the sky. Then a big hand suddenly pressed the back of his head and pressed his head directly into his arms. He also conveniently covered his ears. "Don't listen or he will become deaf, and he will be speechless for a moment." Damn, Qin Yi has such a handsome face. But he has such a long mouth and is so good at creating atmosphere. Bai Shu was not surprised. He took out his tablet and pointed it at the thunderstorm. He immediately uploaded it to the headquarters database. Chen Xiaofei also immediately entered the alert state. Despite the fact that these people are usually mean-mouthed, officially they never give up. Fortunately, everything goes smoothly. The empty space is simply a bottomless pit. The materials in the 3 large warehouses cannot even accumulate a splash. But at this moment, Bai Shu suddenly yelled, "Brother Qin, come here quickly, retreat quickly." A desperate run ensued. People were running away from mines in front, and the sound of thunder from behind was endless. Without saying a word, Qin Yi directly put Zhong Zhan on his shoulders, dragged his waist and ran wildly. When the army was about to attack, the 3 of them rushed into the factory and pulled the door tightly with their backhands. Boom! The loudest thunder in history exploded outside the door. A flash of lightning instantly illuminated the entire factory and the ground was shaking wildly. The survivors were frightened and screamed. Wang Hu roared angrily, telling everyone to shut up and don't touch anything that conducts electricity. "Do you want to be electrocuted?" His angry scolding instantly silenced everyone. The thunderstorm finally passed, but it was pouring rain outside. "It seems that we can't leave tonight. Everyone is sharing the food in silence. What's pitiful is this community of nearly 2,000 people. Now there are less than 100 survivors." Qin Yi leads the empty hall around and locks all the doors. All the survivors instantly exploded. What's the point of posting it so late? Who would have thought that this was true? No one believed the news at all. They either regarded it as a hoax or didn't receive it at all. People cried together again and the future was confused. But at this moment Wang Hu stood up. He swept around the corpses and said in a deep voice, "Raise your hands if you haven't received the survival manual. I will give you the physical version. Ordinary electronic products are basically scrapped." He had to endure the day without using his cell phone. On the other side, Chen Xiaofei was distributing food. He looked at Wang Hu with admiration on his face. Lao Wang was simply the father of this team. He had to do things like comforting the survivors. Only then did he understand the division of labor in this team. Wang Hu is a tall man with a height of over 1.9 meters. He is a born diplomat and must live in the right place. Bai Shu is elegant and Chen Xiaofei has a baby face. Neither of them has that aura. As for their love songs, they are pure force output. Killing indiscriminately can appease the misfortunes of the masses. Chen Xiaofei opened a pack of dry bread. His baby face wrinkled up. Hey, I really want to eat something hot. Baishu didn't even raise his head while munching on an energy bar and recording thunderstorm data on the tablet. It would be nice to have something to eat. However, the friendship has not moved. He suddenly thought of a question. A question that made everyone's hair count down. What do zombies eat? The space where the empty hall awakens before the end of the world is blurred. A full 10,000 square meters of land and materials are his legs. Just when he thought he was the chosen one, he turned into a zombie when the apocalypse came. He was so angry that he lay in bed for 10 days and was about to turn into a zombie at the beginning. Then what is the standard space given to his protagonist? I'm so angry that G can't open his mouth and can only speak ABA. However, Chingy hasn't eaten yet. Not only is he not in a hurry, but he just says something. What do zombies eat? Just then Shikongtang suddenly took out an 800 milliliters thermos cup out of thin air and handed it to Chun Xiaofei. Chun Xiaofei didn't react in a second. I was biting the bread and started to read the love song. Why did the squad leader give me the thermos cup? Open it for him. Chingy also looked confused. How do I know? But I opened it smoothly and the aroma hit my face. The thermos cup was filled with the preserved egg and lean meat porridge freshly cooked by Kongtang. The preserved egg and lean meat were so plentiful that it immediately filled the street with the fragrant aroma. Kongtang patted Chingy and asked him to rush over to deliver it. Chun Xiaofei was so greedy that he cried. Why is there still porridge? It was so fragrant. He took it and ate it in seconds. Bai Shu also swallowed his saliva with greed. The atmosphere instantly heated up. Then Bai Shu started to join the team with envy. The squad leader is a bit biased. Who would have thought that Kongtang would produce a dark blue thermos cup with a wave of his hand? Inside was still preserved egg and lean meat porridge, a perfect double standard for silky and smooth eating. Bai Shu screamed, "You are the fairest." He dared to change his mind on the spot. But Chingy waited for a long time without any urgent complaints from him. It's not that big of a deal, I don't have one. Kongtang suppressed his laughter. The orange-red thermos cup also appeared and was still full of preserved egg and lean meat porridge. The three of them were so happy that they went to heaven. To be honest, this was the first decent meal in the last days of Jingyue. The three of them felt alive after eating the hot porridge. Chun Xiaofei praised the squad leader and said he is a god. As long as he has hot porridge, he is there. Isn't the empty hall like a god at home? He took out a piece of Wang Hu's hot porridge from the space, grilled tea leaves, large meat buns and fruits. The eggs and meat were complete, nutritious and warm. Bai Shu's eyes were filled with admiration. How long did it take to prepare? Even the early warning from the headquarters was not so serious. The three of them checked in happily. They all benefited from the supplies in the empty hall. But the topic changed. What did the squad leader eat? Chun Xiaofei scratched his head. Could it be that he relies on photosynthesis? He looked up and saw the dark clouds were covering the sky and the sun was almost gone. Chingy lowered his head and looked at the empty hall and found that he was squatting alone. The zombie board was in a daze, pitiful and funny. The three of them were still sighing while eating. The squad leader was so miserable. There were piles of supplies, but he turned into a zombie. Facing three pairs of eyes in the empty hall, he could only complain to himself. His expression was miserable and angry. The little master's tears are more of a speechless comedy. In the end, Chin-Yi finished the meal in 2 or 3, took off his gloves and touched his head with a smile on his face. Tell me what you want to eat. It's too bloody and ugly to eat meat. Girls can't do such inelegant things. The atmosphere was just silent. Bai Shu suddenly became happy. The loop is closed, buddy. The squad leader gave us food. Later, we will give it to the squad leader. Hey, so the squad leader can be considered to have achieved the freedom of preparing food by himself. After hearing this, Chun Xiaofei couldn't hold back his laughter. His shoulders twitched as if he was holding back some big melon. The empty hall had a weird expression and was speechless. He is not evil at all and has no interest in flesh and blood. But at the same time, Chin-Yi started to look down at the information. Ordinary zombies are made of blood or raw flesh, but there is no record of Kongtang with special powers in the information. Even if there are various evolutionary schools in the later period, the plainclothes at least still have a heartbeat in the tank. Information like Kongtang, who has lost his ability and is still sane without a heartbeat, will be removed from the list. It's too outrageous. Bai Shu also joined the research team, and Chun Xiaofei joined immediately. As a result, the three of them searched the entire network to no avail. At this time, Kongtang was very curious about their tablet watch. From time to time, Wang Hu took a sneak peek. After he calmed down the survivors, he was attracted by the fragrance. He looked confused. What are you eating? So fragrant. He subconsciously glanced at it as he spoke. Fortunately, The survivors around were afraid of them, and no one was approaching. Otherwise, the Zhoumen incident would be revealed in minutes. Chen Xiaofei quickly handed over the hot porridge specially reserved for Wang Hu and Kong Tang, and the corners of his mouth were filled with fragrance. Shut up and eat the fried heaven given by the squad leader. Wang Hu was stunned for a few seconds while holding the thermos. He looked into the distance with a guilty conscience. The survivors all ate instant noodles. There were many people with heavy stomachs, but no one suspected it. You are not afraid that they will be dissatisfied, but the aroma is so overwhelming that even a king can't resist it. Hold it in a few times and it will show off. It is infinitely more advanced than dry energy bars. It warms your belly and is much more practical. At the same time, Qingyi and Baishu studied for a long time and found out how to raise zombies. They could only take one step at a time and adjust the status of the empty hall at any time. But after all, Wang Hu thought one step more than the other three. He frowned. We have been taking the squad leader with us. What do others think? As soon as he finished speaking, Chen Xiaofei winked and said, Hey old Wang, why don't you serve the squad leader's porridge and stop cursing? Baishu also glanced at him and the atmosphere was subtle. He protected Kong Tang without hesitation. What's wrong? He doesn't stink or suck. Why can't he take him? After saying that, he picked up Kong Tang and packed it into his arms like a crotch doll. Wang Hu couldn't laugh or cry again. Who would dislike it? I mean, can you find some contact lenses to cover the eyes of the squad leader? Don't be conspicuous. It's better to do less than to do more. Baishu and Chen Xiaofei instantly understood the old father's tone. It was reasonable and friendly. They lowered their heads and asked Kong Tang directly. Do you have any contact lenses? Kong Tang blinked and actually took out a box from the space. But he couldn't do this kind of detailed operation now that he was a zombie. He could only look at the three of them helplessly. Baishu quickly dumped the blame and who was responsible for the first love. Chen Xiaofei immediately drew a clear line and no one took over. Qingyi was too lazy to talk nonsense and just left it on. But he was still confused about how to wear contact lenses. In the end, the three of them had to work together to study how to put on contact lenses for the little zombie. The scene was shot to death at one point. Wang Hu stood beside him and sighed silently. In fact, they dared to lead Kong Tang. First, they were reliable and could do without fear of him losing control. Second, this kind of special sane zombie must be brought back to the headquarters research department according to regulations to see if it can be rescued. So there is no problem in petting Kong Tang while performing tasks. In the end, Qingyi was in a hurry and finally helped Kong Tang to bring the Hongbao 10-color contact lens. The new eyes instantly became more energetic than the original red eyes. The three of them spoke in unison. Wow, it looks great. This operation directly lifts the atmosphere. The atmosphere is harmonious, but the night is dangerous after all. The factory is dark and gloomy, although the empty hall has become a zombie. But the strange thing is that he would feel sleepy. He had been working hard for the first 10 days, but now he wanted to sleep. After everyone had finished eating, he packed up the thermos cups and dozed off in a corner. All the survivors in the field had finished eating their instant noodles. They crowded together to sleep, and no one dared to be alone. Wang Hu and Baishu entered a state of rest. Qingyi and Chen Xiaofei were responsible for the first half of the night vigil. The thunderstorm outside the site subsided, and big hailstones and heavy rain hit the factory building with bursts of thunder. With them protecting them, the survivors finally fell into a peaceful sleep. But this peaceful atmosphere was just the surface. After nightfall, the nerves between Qingyi and Chen Xiaofei quietly escalated. Then Qingyi and Chen Xiaofei stopped talking, and the atmosphere became tense instantly. Kong Tang was keenly aware of the tightness between the two of them. Since there was a situation, he simply did not dare to sleep and closed his eyes to rest. On the surface, he was on standby at any time when resting. Wang Hu was fast asleep not far away. Baishu is taking a nap against the wall with a comfortable look on his face. Chen Xiaofei is patrolling privately in the warehouse. His alertness is at full level. Qi chooses a central point to load and unload the container. Whenever there was any movement in this battle, he could control the field as soon as possible, because the thunderstorm area had long been out of power and only dim emergency lights were left to support the field. At this moment, a sharp scream came from outside the factory and the door was shut. Someone in the crowd screamed, "Why are there monkeys?" The factory was completely fried. Wang Hu and Baishu instantly turned over and woke up. They quickly looked towards the source of the movement. The door was banged, and the iron sheet of the factory was scratched until I sat down. My heart was red and my eyes were red. The claws were ridiculously long and sharp enough to tear through steel plates. At the same time, other survivors also saw clearly, followed by another wave of piercing screams. How could ordinary people remain calm in the face of such a monster? Subconsciously, he screamed at the top of his lungs, but the mutated monkey heard the cry and instead jumped to his feet and hissed like a chicken. Wang Hu immediately made a decision and roared to the audience. Stop yelling. In the next second, I will instruct everyone to hug the group leader Yen Ting. Don't run around. He is standing too scattered and no one can protect him. As he spoke, he fired the tree gun, and the mutant monkeys fell to the ground one after another. At the same time, Bai Shu rushed over, dragged the survivors with his bare hands and threw them into the corner. His movements were fast and ruthless. Chen Xiaofei followed closely to help defend and protect everyone to the death. Wang Hu focused on the fire area and concentrated on cleaning up the monkeys. He couldn't help but roar in his heart. What the hell is the weather like? Why did we get into such trouble today? He turned around to look at Qingyi and went straight to the solo harvester. With a double-edged knife in hand, not only can he outspeed the whole group of monkeys, but he can also use his killing move to finish the work for a row of monkeys. Suddenly, there is an old monkey king at the end of the group of monkeys, and he is furious. Hold on to the iron railing and shake wildly. If you can't beat me, just go to Sonic. Seeing that he could still dodge, Chen Xiaofei and Bai Shu finally felt at ease and turned around to continue their own melee. However, this monkey wave could not be finished, and the survivors couldn't hold back and started shouting. Why are there so many monkeys? The expert blurted out that K-type animals have the most apes, but how can there not be too many crazy monkeys? The answer just came out and the whole factory was jumping like crazy. At this time, Kong Tang was also dodging like crazy. He accidentally got himself covered in filth, which stuck to his clothes and made him feel uncomfortable. But he found that he was more alert than usual, so he just picked up the cans on the ground and hit the monkey. The accuracy was ridiculous. Every blow hit the monkey's head. Until he personally held the head of a mutated monkey with a can. Chen Xiaofei couldn't help but kill him. The squad leader is so awesome. It's better than a love song. But Kong Tang didn't have time to respond to compliments. He counterattacked so fiercely that the hatred of the monkeys was filled. In the blink of an eye, the mutant monkey chasing him turned into 5 six-digit fingers. He has a huge body, his face reaches to his ears, and he is lying straight up. The scene is very eye-catching. He is running in the empty hall and frowning. The fireman who is forced to approach him has to lean against the wall on this way. Staring at the monkeys on the opposite side, before the end of the world, Kong Tang awakened a space gate, and 10,000 square meters of land and materials were slashed at his legs. Just when he thought he was some kind of chosen daughter. On the day the apocalypse came, he immediately turned into a zombie. He was so angry that he lay in bed for 10 days. He was about to become a zombie at the beginning. So what was the standard space given to his protagonist? She was so angry that he couldn't speak. He only knew ABA. At this time, Kong Tang was on the verge of death. He could only lean against the wall and stare at the monkeys on the opposite side. These red eyes looked particularly evil under the emergency lights. He tried to calm down, but the monkeys didn't give him any time. The next second they all rushed forward, and Sun Gun threw the chainsaw in vain. There was a loud buzzing sound and the electric current was shaking violently. His legs were shaking but his hands were unsteady. His expression was calm and there was no fluctuation in his expression. After all, he really couldn't make a scared expression now. The monkeys here have just been painted. Chen Xiaofei and Bai Shu rushed to the scene after the bloody battle. As soon as they entered the door, they were stunned. The empty hall was covered in blood and held a chainsaw. The walls around the ceiling below are all mosaics of monkeys. Even zombie movies have never been so exciting. They were silent for a while. Bai Shu held the gun tightly and looked solemn. The squad leader, Chen Xiaofei, is even more heartbroken. He doesn't want to see his old classmates go crazy anymore. It's rare to have acquaintances in the ink room. Besides, the squad leader is also a nice person and has many resources. When he was nervous, he saw that Kong Tang was just a cold-blooded person. He nodded reservedly and snorted calmly. His tone was a bit cute. Then the two of them exhaled. Good guys. I thought you were going completely crazy. But Kong Tang was even more confused. Although he had become a zombie, he still had a complete brain and consciousness. Kong Tang looked down at his hands covered with blood, and couldn't help but feel a little confused. Who is he now? The number of survivors in the monkey group's attack just now dropped sharply. 100 people turned into 92 in the blink of an eye. The survivors were all numb. It was obvious that their hearts were about to collapse. At the same time, Wang Hu took the wounded to treat their wounds. Some civilians were worried about infection and asked urgent questions, but he could not give an answer for the time being. After all, even the prophets could not guarantee it. The survival manual is not a panacea. Everyone is getting more and more desperate. Wang Hu can only encourage him to hold on. He really can't say anything else. Here, Bai Shu and Qin Xiaofei keep taking pictures and recording data with tablets. All the report pictures will be uploaded later. All the evidence is collected so that human beings can survive in the future. A heavy sense of responsibility comes over the face. The empty hall quietly moves to the side and stares at the filth on the ground. The whole field seemed to be mosaic. He was silent. At this moment, Qin Yi killed the Monkey King. His hand turned red, but a crystal with green light showed up. Bai Shu and Qin Xiaofei stood up instantly and said nervously, "Brother Qin, is your hand okay?" At the same time, they patted the crystal again and again. Kong Tang subconsciously captured the keywords. IHMO is mentioned repeatedly in the survival manual. It is derived from mutant organisms and its value is ridiculously high. Obtaining IHA means the status of a strong person and also represents unknown power. Bai Shu and Qin Xiaofei were busy taking pictures. Qin Yi glanced over with a gloomy look. Kong Tang was immediately a little scared. His murderous look last night came to mind. He knew that if he went completely crazy and turned into a monster, the first people to kill him would be Qin Yi and his team, but he also understood that if he really lost control, dying in their hands might be better than turning into a monster. At least he was one of his own, but he was still a little timid and powerless. The atmosphere at the scene became awkward. Qin Xiaofei tried to explain that the squad leader was actually still conscious and was just trying to draw. Suddenly he heard Gulu's movement echoing throughout the whole place. Kong Tang was actually hungry. What was even more outrageous was that he was staring at Iha in Qin Yi's hand. He could smell a sweet fruity fragrance from a distance, and his throat was itchy. Bai Shu and Qin Xiaofei were shocked for a moment. Little zombies can also growl. Qin Xiaofei blinked. What should the squad leader do if he is hungry? Bai Shu shrugged and said there was nothing he could do. At this time, Qin Yi noticed that his eyes were locked with definition. But he tried his best to keep his face and pretend not to care. Qin Xiaofei exclaimed first, "Brother Qin, you really want to give Iha to the squad leader? Are you crazy?" Bai Shu also quickly reminded him. The governor asked Iha to take it back. Just before the atmosphere became tense, Kong Tang looked up and found that Qin Yi had walked up to him. He handed Iha over and asked him in a low voice, "Do you want it?" When he saw Qin Yi's expression, he found that it didn't look like he was just threw Iha into his arms. Holding Iha in the empty hall was cold and had a strange texture. Bai Shu and Qin Xiaofei were still asking questions. Qin Yi replied calmly. The lowest level Iha let him eat it. Is his value still lower than the first level Iha? The headquarters asked me to carry it. The captain's attitude was very tough. They didn't object and believed he could solve it. But Wang Hu didn't know and was about to ask. Unexpectedly, Qin Xiaofei quickly dragged Wang Hu aside to explain. Wang Hu stared and was completely shocked. Kudo turned out to be a space superpower and could swallow Iha. However, he was stunned. The group quickly returned to the base and went to the dormitory after routine inspection. Unexpectedly, when they turned around, several people were stunned. Damn! The zombie setting in the empty hall was full of nothingness. His pajamas were black and turned into camouflage. But Qin Yi just took off his shoes in the clinic. Bo panicked but was unexpectedly soft. Unexpectedly, as soon as he put on these shoes, Kong Tang could smell a trace of life warmth. He couldn't hide the smile at the corner of his mouth. Qin Yi just glanced at it coldly and said nothing. He turned around and continued to move forward. He followed, but he had a subtle feeling in his mind. The awkward atmosphere continued from the monkey group's killing. The reason was that Qin Yi almost showed murderous intentions. Although it was reasonable, it made him feel uncomfortable unilaterally. Kudo wanted to understand, but he didn't mind at all. He knew that as long as he didn't go on a rampage, he would never kill him. However, once he really turned into an unconscious walking zombie, he even recognized him after being shot in the head. After all, he was the first person he saw. If he would rather kill the wrong person than let him go, he would have died a long time ago. He is still living here for one more moment because his heart has not changed. That's why he no longer hesitates and just wants to follow Qin Yi. But he doesn't like the empty hall of the Scientific Research Center. Under the cold lighting, the white coat is like a strong wind. At any moment, he feels like he is being strapped to the operating table and having sex. He is more willing to go out to collect supplies and fight for rescue. This makes sense. Finally, they took the special subway again and went straight to their desired place. Then they were caught off guard and stood at the gate of a brand new community. Qin Yi led him into a building by swiping his bracelets. This is actually the name of Kongtang's former community, and it is also a destined overlap. The activity center building in front is very impressive. The first floor is the canteen and the second floor is a supermarket. Various shops on the third floor, cinema and fitness on the fourth floor. The 7 BCDEF buildings in the community are arranged in a circle. The central axis is the activity center. This is Chin Yi's online commentator mode, which explains in detail the division of room numbers. Menqing of Kongtang Hall was allocated room 1901 on the 9th floor of the cave. Chin Yi is next door. Old Wang, Lao Bai and Xiaofei also live next to him. If he hadn't been appointed to the Chin Yi team, he didn't deserve this good room at all, so he felt grateful for it. Then he went upstairs to swipe his bracelet and entered the door. The room was 1 bedroom, 1 living room, 1 kitchen and 1 bathroom. It was like a hotel model room with white bedding and extremely clean. Chin Yi looked at the little zombie excitedly spinning around and thought it was cute. If you need anything, I'm right next door. He knocked on the door to remind. Kongtang nodded, and then he left and took the person with him. The next second Kongtang happily walked around his new home. He really liked this place and the spacious balcony. But who knows if the sun will still be visible in the future. What was even more surprising was that Chin Yi did not come to ask for cans. He put all the inventory here and checked the multifaceted mold space. Several cells were filled with cans. He immediately felt full of security. Then he began to explore the standard bracelets in the community. There are card slots on both sides for inserting chips. The screen is small and can be used for cultural reading. It has built-in chat software. The personal information is his electronic ID card and a current photo of him. It's lifeless and not cute. Keep clicking and you'll find it's a barcode. It's all there and the operation is simple and straightforward. Then there's the balance refresh and the 100 points notification. K is for the excellent rescue performance in Qingrun community. The bonus is 100 points. The mood in the empty hall instantly takes off. These are the functions of the bracelet at present. There are only 3 standard tablets installed. Photo gallery forum. As soon as he logged in to the forum homepage, he saw multiple sections. There were 3 major sections in the serious area. Task release experience sharing database. But there is only one non-serious section, which is full of gossip. However, as soon as you enter the empty hall, you will see the most popular posts at the bottom. The title directly talks about the function of a box and creates speculation. He subconsciously clicked on it and the results were all explosive. The poster said that the wall box was not only unique to living things but actually appeared in the computer. He had just participated in the rescue of Sea City last night. There is a mechanized box hidden in the alienated computer case. It almost wiped out the entire team. The culprit turned out to be Software A. The link is attached to the post in the information area and the battle video. In the picture, the combat team lifted out a box from the computer host with their bare hands. The metallic light was shining directly on the screen. This news directly exploded the entire forum. The boundary between science and science fiction was completely lost. Who would have thought that A's joke of ruling the earth would come true right before his eyes? The comment section below the poster is filled with laughter. The live broadcast room is wailing that the world is over. Half collapse and half revelry. The whole screen is filled with ha 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 ha. Let's just play together. The empty hall is busy with the game. Suddenly, the heartbeat speeds up. After all, he just knocked a box of pills last night, and they are from the Jehu mutated Monkey King. Chin Yi said that it is the lowest version. Kong Tang recalled that the candy tasted crunchy and crispy, refreshing and sweet, and it was still full. It is amazing that even now, he is still 70% to 80% full. He guessed that this thing might be able to improve his physical fitness. After eating it, he became much more agile and walked, almost like an ordinary person. Kong Tang continued to click on the database, which was full of various files. Only then did they understand that Bai Shu and Qin Xiaofei took thunderstorm videos every day not to do meteorology, but to collect first-hand data specifically for this purpose. The latest and hottest 20 iron miles, Bai Shu's latest thunderstorm trends. He and Qin Xiaofei's mutant monkey group certificate occupy the C position. The introduction is very hardcore with pictures and videos. The disregard for daily life has been uploaded into an expansion pack. The more he browses, the more he becomes popular. The filth on my body had long since dried up, and my pajamas were hardened into iron. I couldn't bear it anymore and rushed into the bathroom. I adjusted the hot water to the right temperature, for fear of accidentally cooking myself. The lucky thing about the King of Throatless is that now he can control his body freely during the day. Otherwise, he can only be active at night, which would be called suffocation. Clean it carefully and take out the toiletries from the space of the multifaceted Rubik's Cube. He cleaned himself up with a new smell and put on clean pajamas. As for the filthy pink rabbit, he threw it into the basin without saying a word, wondering if he could wash it and recycle it. Normally, If the hall is empty, it will be thrown into the trash can in 1 second. But the little zombie's instinct to save money overwhelms his disgust, and his brain gets stuck, and his clothes immediately get wet. Just as he is immersed in rubbing his clothes. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. Chun Xiaofei came online. His hands were full of foam and he rushed to open the door. Chun Xiaofei held up something and his eyes lit up. Squad leader, look at the good things we brought you. He wanted to be a little more mysterious, but as soon as he saw an empty hall and a foam mouth in his hand, he glanced at you. What are you doing? Chingy frowned and glanced at the bathroom. The next moment he made a decisive move and directly picked him up. Before the end of the world, Kong Tang awakened a space gate, and a full 10,000 square meters of land and materials were cut into his legs. Just when he thought he was some kind of chosen daughter. On the day the apocalypse came, he immediately turned into a zombie. He was so angry that he lay in bed for 10 days. He was about to turn into a zombie at the beginning. So what is the standard space given to his protagonist? I was so angry that Ji could not speak. He could only speak ABA. At this moment, Chingy frowned and looked over. He took his arm and took him to the sink. He pointed at the clothes in the basin and asked coldly, "What are you doing washing those clothes?" "A pile of contaminated liquid. This thing must be put into a sealed garbage bag and thrown into the hazardous trash can." Kong Tang was stunned for a moment, but he immediately felt that he was right. There are a large number of ordinary people in the survivor base. If anyone comes into contact with the filth of a monkey here, wouldn't it kill people? He was so frightened that he quickly wanted to grab his clothes, but Chingy stopped him. He pulled out a sealed garbage bag and his tone was unquestionable. "I'll wash your hands. After washing, go out to eat." Eat. The empty hall is still thinking about what happened to eat. After he finished washing his hands, he heard Chun Xiaofei shouting hello over there. "Squad monitor. Come quickly." He ran out angrily, wondering why these two people are so familiar with each other. This was his house. However, the next second he saw a transparent box on the table. Inside was a box of 3 yuan, 1 green and 2 orange. Chun Xiaofei came over excitedly. "Look, to welcome you to join our 3 special operations teams. Brother Chin spent a lot of money to buy it for you." His eyes are shining brightly. "You are really amazing, squad leader. It's so much worse for others to eat a box of it. You can actually chew it in public. Come on, eat another one and show it to me." As soon as he finished speaking, Chin Yi said coldly when he came out after finishing the clothes, "You are treating him like a monkey." But Kong Tang has already approached the coffee table with gleaming eyes. The fragrance of green grass and the salty aroma of natural kebabs are so fragrant. But when he touched his stomach, he felt that he was still 6 to 7 times full. Not hungry yet. Just then, the doorbell rang again. Chin Yi went to open the door. Bai Shu and Wang Hu also came. Wang Hu was carrying several sets of combat uniforms in his left hand. The squad leader who just applied for size 165 should be able to wear it. Then he changed the topic and his code also came down. It was unlucky 13444. When Chun Xiaofei heard this, he blew up a row of our tables. "Isn't it? This is too deceptive." Bai Shu also added with a speechless face. People from the headquarters also said that the squad leader is also a zombie anyway. "I'm also worried that 444 is unlucky. It's really weird. A related household next door is waiting to pick a number. They are treating them differently." Even Chin Yi couldn't help but ask. He didn't go to the headquarters to ask. Girls use such unlucky things. He watches them in the empty hall fighting for his injustice. He feels vaguely and firmly that the end of the world is just a dream, but he knows that he is still a little Shursher without a heartbeat. So he took out his tablet and typed it quietly and showed it to them. "It doesn't matter. I don't mind, just a code." As a result, the 4 of them were silent after reading it. The next second Chin Yi turned around and went to make a phone call. His voice was frozen. "No, I'm going to ask. I want to ask why I can change my relationship with the household. Can't be done if we work hard at the front." Chun Xiaofei also echoed angrily, "That's it. It's the end of the world," but he still engages in the practice of related households. Then he immediately turned to the empty hall to induce vomiting and said, "Squad leader, please eat quickly. Don't worry about these nonsense." Bai Shu stared at the 3 Iha eyes with sighs. These Iha love songs were obtained after a lot of connections. Wang Hu also came over to take a look and then frowned with a headache. Mutated animals are much more difficult to deal with than zombies. This is just the basic level. If something advanced comes up in the future, the topic will become serious in an instant. The 3 of them shut up immediately. Bai Shu broke the silence and put the nutrient solution and a bag of steamed buns on the table. "Let's eat first." It's only been 10 days and the food in the cafeteria has been reduced by 80%. He looked at the bag of steamed buns and suddenly asked, "How many points do you think this bag of steamed buns has?" Chun Xiaofei skillfully unscrewed the nutrient solution and asked curiously, "How much?" Wang Hu sighed and stretched out his finger. 200 points for 8 steamed buns. How much? Chun Xiaofei took a breath and his face ached. 25 points for 1 white steamed bun. The empty hall was silent for a moment. He remembered that Professor Ji said that 3 points can make you full. But now it seems that being full and eating well is completely different. Wang Hu gnawed on the steamed bun and explained, "There are too many survivors and food is in short supply. We have to give priority to ordinary people. We can only drink nutrient solution first." But Bai Shu said that the steamed buns are good, so we can make do with them. As he spoke, he took out a jar of chili sauce from the memory card, still feeling pain. Chun Xiaofei quickly grabbed it with quick eyes and hands, and scooped up a large spoonful with sweet words and hands. Bai Shu exploded in an instant. "Bastard, it's the last can. You should bite less." I didn't expect that even Wang Hu, who looked steady, took the opportunity to take a big spoonful. How reliable were these 3 people in their rescue, but how unreliable they were in private. They almost got into a fight over a bottle of chili sauce. At this moment, Kong Tang silently took out 4 large boxes of food, which were the rations for his village. Then the 3 grown men instantly became stunned. Staring at the 4 big boxes of rice, fish-flavored shredded pork, garlic greens, braised chicken, and fragrant rice, Kong Tang took out 4 more cans of tomato and egg soup. Then he opened the lid of the lunchbox and the aroma of the food instantly filled the entire living room. Gudong. The 3 of them swallowed hard. God. Am I dreaming? Squad leader, are you Doraemon? It's been a long time since I saw a normal meal. Thank you, squad leader. You are really the best teacher in the world. What made them burst into tears? It was a dinner of 3 dishes and 1 soup. Chun Xiaofei even cried and started eating the vague black smoke. I thought it would be good to eat hot porridge, but I didn't expect that there would be food to eat. Wang Hu and Bai Shu had already filled their mouths with food and were still fighting each other. Kong Tang was very happy holding a box of 3. He also quietly added a roast duck to Qin Yi's lunchbox. Qin Yi, who finished the phone call the next second, came back and found that the 3 team members were missing. Schwer brought 3 pigs that were handing out food. Chun Xiaofei pushed his core over while eating and yelled incomprehensibly. "It's so thorny. Brother Qin, thorn it quickly." Qin was stunned after taking a bite. The fish-flavored shredded pork is fresh and delicious. The braised chicken is tender and juicy. It's time to say that there is no sound in the living room except for the sound of ducks and birds immersed in eating. The empty hall was afraid that they would not have enough, so he took out 4 boxes of white rice. But it was all eaten. After finishing the meal, Chun Xiaofei spread out on the sofa with his stomach bulging. He was very helpful. At this moment, Qin Yi shook the tablet and figured it out. The number of the empty hall was changed to 13613, which was much better than the 13444. The 3 people who praised him and didn't want to talk all gave him a thumbs up. Qin Yi accepted it calmly and turned to look at the empty hall. The little zombie gave him a thumbs up for a second. Qin Yi was amused for a moment, and then Chun Xiaofei and the others also started laughing. This feeling of eating and drinking is so happy. Chun Xiaofei then explained, "Don't mind, squad leader. We really don't know what the base's attitude towards alienated people is like now. It wasn't like this when we left. It turned out that they were vigilant before for a reason. Not only because he could maintain consciousness, but also because the base's signal was unstable and the information was not updated in time. They didn't know that the alienated people had been unified." Seeing their guilty explanations, Kong Tang touched the collar around his neck and shook his head. Then he typed on his tablet. "It's okay. It's normal for you to be cautious. After all, they represent the future of mankind. Even if you start this article, you can just go over it. After the misunderstanding is resolved, the atmosphere instantly becomes comfortable." Qin Yi initially had 2 modes for his science popularization mission. One was a stable income from special missions from the headquarters that he could not refuse, and the other was a mode of accepting orders by himself with extremely high risks. Chun Xiaofei laughed and joked, "We, the squad leader, are just like the delivery boys." Then Wang Hu gave him a headset, but the communication distance was only 10 kilometers. At this moment, Bai Shu made a key point. "With the squad leader space, we can go to places with abundant supplies and make more trips." But he then pointed out that places that have not been searched are extremely dangerous. He circled 2 locations. The first option was to go to City C, where the largest granary in the country is located. However, when an abiotic xenobiotic danger just appeared there, The second option was to go to City C. There is a weapons depot there, but the degree of danger in the territorial waters over there is also unknown. More importantly, Kong Tong's spatial ability must not be exposed. Once exposed, he will completely lose his freedom. The whole team, as City C was close and food was more urgent than weapons, he decided to go to City C. Early the next morning, the whole team was ready to go. A brand new black and gold off-road vehicle parked in front of them. The maintenance man excitedly introduced, "Team Chin, your car has received the biggest upgrade. Can switch between submarine or tank mode." Chen Xiaofei was shocked and shouted around the car, "It's so cool. It's so handsome." Bai Shu kicked the tires. Wang, who looked at the huge car with his eyes shining. Only Kong Tang, wearing combat uniform, looked up at this behemoth. Wang, who was 1.96 meters tall, Qin Yi was 1.89 meters tall, Bai Shu was 1.85 meters tall, and even Chen Xiaofei was 1.8 meters tall. The empty pond was only 1.63 meters tall. Among these giants, he probably had to climb onto the car. Sure enough, he started to climb up awkwardly while others were not paying attention. The next second, a pair of big hands suddenly appeared. He grabbed his waist and easily sent him up. Qin Yi's deep laughter came. If he couldn't get up, just scream. "Aren't you tired of tossing around? There are so many teammates." Qin Yi's voice was teasing. However, Kong Tang climbed into the car but ignored him. The young master also wanted to save face. He got into the back seat and hid in the back seat, looking at the modified combat vehicle with wide eyes. The huge height of the car makes the field of view wide, and there are even more spacious seats for 7 people inside. At this moment, a fluffy blanket was thrown on him. Bai Shu smiled and said, "I just came here." The squad leader covered him up and played. The atmosphere in the car was just right. Kong Tang immediately took out a few thermos bottles, one for each person. The inside was actually herbal tea that could soothe the throat and reduce inflammation. Chen Xiaofei screamed instantly, "You're so good, squad leader. Do you have any snacks?" Before he finished speaking, Bai Shu hit him on the head. Wang, who also reminded him immediately, "It is necessary to be on guard while being indifferent." Unexpectedly, Kong Tang actually took out a wooden whistle from the space. When he agreed, he blew it briefly. This proposal instantly relaxed the tense atmosphere. The 4 of them all turned to look at him. Then Jing Qiqi gave him a thumbs up, and Qin Yi raised an eyebrow and smiled. "Okay, squad leader. There are always more methods than difficulties." The car started quickly and passed 3 checkpoints one after another. During the attack, the staff saw Qin Yi smiling and teasing him for working too hard. But in the blink of an eye, he saluted them with a military salute in all seriousness. "I hope you all have a safe journey home." Qin Yi just leaned on the steering wheel and smiled. "Okay, let's go." As soon as he finished speaking, the car flew out with a whoosh. The huge momentum made Kong Tang fall directly into the back row. As soon as he got up, he suddenly discovered that most of the trees outside the window had died overnight. Chen Xiaofei also swore at him. This was too poisonous. However, the white tree had a solemn expression. This was just a specific area. Then he dropped a bombshell, ignoring the impending empty pond and awakening his space powers. A full 10,000 square meters of territory and materials were used to slash his legs. Just when he thought he was the chosen one, he turned into a zombie on the day of neglect. He was so angry that he lay in bed for 10 days and was about to turn into a zombie at the beginning. Then why give him a standard role as a protagonist? I was so angry that Ji could not speak. He only knew how to say, but Bai Shu had a solemn look on his face, and then he dropped a bombshell. "You haven't seen it yet. An old banyan tree has taken over the whole thing." "What?" Kong Tang immediately took out his tablet. The latest news on the forum confirmed Bai Shu's words. A city was swallowed up by a tree, but they didn't have time to be shocked. Qing Yi had already driven the car directly into the zombies on the roadside because Bai Shu reported their execution mission. 500 survivors were trapped on the 4th floor of a business district. However, Chen Xiaofei suddenly added that the survivors on the periphery were the most troublesome. The mission they received was called a zombie den. The map that Kong Tang nested on the tablet in the back row was shocking. The entire business district was filled with pedestrian streets and densely packed shops. When the apocalypse came, there were so many people there that Wang Hu instantly got a headache. The most troublesome zombies in this kind of place are many, and the heavy firepower cannot be used to clear the feet. It takes at least 10 days to lay the foundation. Not only that, Bai Shu added immediately, the survivors are scattered, making the rescue more difficult. The only hope is to collect some supplies. After all, Bai Shu said that an intact piece of clothing is worth a lot of money these days. Hearing this, Kong Tang glanced at the space in the Rubik's Cube that he had not yet filled. Fortunately, he had enough clothes here. At the same time, Chingy drove the car all the way and all kinds of zombies were knocked away with one punch, but he didn't even blink because these things only had the instinct to bite, and there was no psychological burden when they were killed. As for the real cute little zombies, such as Kong Tang, he could tell them apart at a glance. At this moment, the car suddenly turned onto the highway. The highway conditions were surprisingly good and the road was smooth. The decorated chariot has huge wheels that can crush anything. What's even more amazing is that the body of the chariot is not stained with any dirt. At this moment, Chen Xiaofei started to cry out that he was hungry. Unexpectedly, Kong Tang took out 8 fist-sized tuna rice balls in the next second. Not only that, but also 8 cans of cans, 4 with meat and 4 with fruit. Chen Xiaofei was so happy that he almost cried. It's great to have a small squad leader. Before, he could only eat dry food. Wang Hu also had a few mouthfuls of rice balls with a face full of satisfaction. After Wang Hu finished eating, he drove to Qin Yi to eat. However, Qin Yi turned around and stared at the empty pond. He looked at him holding the tablet and eating only 1 pill per box. He suddenly said, "You can't eat any human food now." As soon as Qin Yi finished speaking, Kong Tang silently took out the tablet and typed. It was tasteless and a waste of food. This was his pain. He simply turned his head and Qin Yi held the tablet and continued to browse. Who knew that the next second, an urgent top red iron would make his scalp numb. An alien whose upper body is a tongue and lower body is 2 human legs is running towards the C-type. This thing is devouring its own kind and killing humans. It is extremely disgusting. There is a reward of 100,000 points. Do you want to look at it like this? Kong Tang complained madly in his heart. He didn't want to encounter this thing at all. However, Bai Shu also saw the post and handed it to Qin Yi with his backhand. Qin Yigong thought the angry little zombie was a bit cute. The moment he saw the post, his face turned dark and he looked disgusting. At this moment, Kong Tang suddenly raised his hand and patted Qin Yi on the head. Qin Yi thought he was angry and grabbed his hand. "Stop making trouble." But Kong Tang stared out the window and blew a whistle briefly. Qin Yi and Bai Shu were instantly attracted, and they followed his fingers and turned their heads to look. Damn it! In the woods in the distance was a huge mutant snake man, squirming like an earthworm. The way the face and tongue were mixed together were so crazy that the two of them were silent for a moment. Bai Shu cursed, "Why is it so big?" Qin Yi looked even more disgusted. But Kong Tang was so disgusted that he took a video and sent it to Bai Shu for him to publish. This mutated snake man seemed to be on his way and passed them far away. But his direction was also sea. The car continued to move forward, and the next second it rushed directly into a terrifying cloud and mist, as if it had stepped into another world. It was raining heavily and the visibility was less than half a meter. The sound of the rain was so loud that it was deafening. At this moment, there was a snap sound, and a mutated frog with a human head slammed against the car window. His tongue was full of barbs and scratched the glass frantically. Kong Tang was so frightened that he shrank back. Bai Shu checked the information and Xinshang said, "The primary mutated frog is afraid of fire. The thorns on its tongue can scrape off a pile of meat." The voice was Lu Kong Tang. There was only one thought left in his mind. Kill him. Before anyone could react, he took out the insect repellent and lighter, raised the window, sprayed fire and closed the window. It took less than 3 seconds to complete the action in one go. The mutated frog cried out and was instantly treated to charcoal. He fell off the car and was kicked out by the rear wheels. However, the back seat was also soaked by the heavy rain. The empty pond was soaked and dumbfounded. He became a drowned little zombie. He was stunned. The 3 people in the front row were also dumbfounded. He looked at the silent people and then at the wet back seat. Suddenly he felt like a child who had done something wrong. He wanted to cry as soon as his mouth deflated. But zombies have no tears. But they didn't let him cry. The moment his mouth deflated, Qin Yi actually shouted, "Don't cry. He did a good job." After saying that, he turned over and carried Gong Tang to a clean position. Bai Shu and Chen Xiaofei immediately reacted and opened their mouths to praise. Yes, squad leader, you did a good job. It turns out that this mutated frog should be dealt with as soon as possible. Who knows whether it will mutate again in the next second. What's more, last night's report showed that Kong Tang's intelligence is extremely unstable. Sometimes they are 18 or 19 years old, and sometimes they regress to 7 or 8 years old. Watching them hurriedly coaxing themselves, the empty pond was stunned and unable to cry. Qin Yi wiped the seat, but it was still damp. So he turned around and took out a towel to cover his head. He quickly wiped it and changed into dry clothes. Unexpectedly, Bai Shu actually took out a green cloth in the next second. Qin Yi and Bai Shu actually held each other. A temporary curtain was held up for him. Kong Tang changed his clothes behind the curtain and blew a wooden whistle. Then the two closed the curtain. But Qin Yi said again, "Come here. Don't wait for the tide in the back row." Before he finished speaking, he directly carried Kong Tang to his side and let him sit side by side with him. The little zombie was refreshed all over, but his hair was still damp. Qin Yi couldn't stand it and took a clean towel to wipe his head. He pressed his head with one hand and rubbed it wildly. The other hand was stroking a tablet. There was a service area 20 kilometers away and he went to check it out. After saying that, Qin Yi threw away the tablet and began to concentrate on holding the little zombie's head. Kong Tang was rubbed until he staggered and fell asleep. However, before the car reached the service area, hail fell from the sky. Hailstones as big as basketballs were crackling down. If it weren't for the explosion-proof glass, the car would have been shattered. Kong Tang's glasses were stuck to the car windows. This hailstone could really kill someone. There were several parked cars on the road. When they drove in, they saw that they were full of zombies. Without saying anything, Chun Xiaofei threw a few bombs, which directly blew up the car and drove away. After much stumbling in the second half of the journey, we finally arrived at the service area. It wasn't thundering or raining, but it was terribly dark. Zombies were wandering around in the service area. Wang Hu directly chased them away and drove towards the gas station without stopping. "I'll go down and see if there's still gas. Qin Yi, please open the gas tank." Qin Yi immediately returned to the back of the car after hearing the order. Qin Yi leaned over to operate the fuel tank cap and immediately lay down. He turned back to Kong Tang and said, "Stay in the car until we finish filling up the gas. Do you understand? Please press the switch." Kong Tang nodded and blew the wooden whistle. Qin Yi then turned his hair around and got out of the car. With a bang, the car door closed tightly, and all four people got out of the car. Chun Xiaofei followed Qin Yi and went straight to the main building of the service area. The zombies surrounded the corner. The sound of gunshots and the magnetism made them move faster and faster. Wang Hu and Bai Shu were refueling outside the car and performing their duties. Kong Tang waited for Wang Hu to signal and immediately closed the fuel tank cap. Then he pushed open the middle door and jumped out of the car. This scared Wang Hu and Bai Shu half to death. "Squad leader, what are you doing down here? It's not safe to get back to the car. You must know that he is a treasure with huge spatial powers. It's worth more than all of them." However, Kong Tang didn't listen at all. He ignored the two people's advice. When he saw the oil drum Wang Hu found still, he reached out and Bai Shu fried the pot on the spot. Ancestors can't touch this directly, but it's too late. Kong Tang's finger has already touched the gasoline. The next second, the entire barrel of gasoline stops emptying and disappears. He takes out a can from the space and puts it back. Pointing directly at the oil barrel again, Wang Hu instantly understood. "Squad leader, you are collecting the gasoline directly." Kong Tang nodded reservedly and patted his expressionless face. With his messy hair, he looked crying and dumbfounded. Bai Shu called out on the spot, "Cowboy squad leader, please work hard, and we will keep you on guard." So Kong Tang nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. Kong Tang ran around in the gas station emptying the oil tanks at the bottom one by one. After collecting the oil, the three of them showed a satisfied smile. Bai Shu suggested again, "Are you tired, squad leader? There are still a lot of things in the supermarket. Let's collect them together." Kong Tang's eyes lit up and he nodded immediately. He likes to hoard things more than anyone else. Wang Hu is responsible for sweeping things into piles. The white tree was standing by to protect them, and Kong Tang was responsible for collecting them directly. The entire small supermarket was emptied out in less than a minute. There were all kinds of barrels of instant noodles, drinks, biscuits, and snacks. Seeing the multifaceted modular space filled with several grids, Kong Tang felt extremely at ease, especially for such an important material as gasoline. In the early stage of neglect, it was hard to pass through the fire. However, they were so immersed in collecting supplies that they didn't realize that the whole afternoon had passed. Bai Shu lowered his head to watch the menstruation. 6 o'clock was too fast. At this moment, there was a loud noise not far away. The electric current bared its teeth and claws in the air, creating a dazzling flash. Kong Tang was instinctively frightened, but Bai Shu pushed up his glasses and said with a smile, "I guess Brother Qin got bored and just started using his powers." Turns out that Qin Yi has a rare thunderstorm power. Because he hasn't fully adapted to it, he doesn't like to use it at all. After an afternoon of clearing the corner, all the zombies in the service area were finally wiped out. However, the dark sky was full of wind and clouds, and there was a strong uneasiness. At this moment, Wang Hu contacted Qin Yi with his bracelet. "Where is Brother Qin's little flying man?" and soon there was movement in the mail. In the cafeteria, Wang Hu immediately replied, "We'll be there in 20 minutes. Let's collect some things first," because Qin Yi's voice came immediately. "But there are still about 10 survivors here." His meaning is very clear. If there are outsiders acting, you must pay attention. But who cares about this in Kongtang? Go directly to the specialty store next to it and start the collection mode. The squad leader. Kongtang turned around and looked, ran over and put the entire cabinet into the space. Wang Hu, a big man, clenched his fists on the spot. "From now on, squad leader, you will be my big brother. You can do whatever you want if you have tobacco or alcohol." Bai Shu shook his head at the drugstore opposite. This guy is too real. However, there are only 3 words in Kongtang's mind: tun tun tun. He didn't hear what the two of them were talking about at all. After collecting the specialty store, he rushed into the drugstore and swept away everything he needed to transport colds and nutritional supplements. Then he rushed into the gourmet store with 2 bodyguards. He went straight to the back door and collected all the inventory in the refrigerator and warehouse. Bai Shu was completely stunned when he saw Kongtang running wildly through the row of small shops. He lowered his voice and said to Wang Hu, he had collected 3 large warehouses of cans and so much gasoline before, and now he is still collecting him. How big is his space? Wang Hu was immediately in awe. Don't mention it again. The more powerful we are, the more we have to keep it a secret. Bai Shu immediately shut up and nodded solemnly. After Kongtang had collected all the stocks of snack fried skewers and several large barrels of cooking oil, the 3 of them rushed to the canteen, but they had just arrived at the door. Kongtang saw through the glass door a dozen survivors standing inside. What was even more shocking was that a girl was hugging Chen Xiaofei tightly and kept crying, "I'm so scared. I'm so scared." Before the end of the world, a space gate awakened in Kongtang. A full 10,000 square meters of land and materials were slashed at his legs. Just when he thought he was some kind of chosen girl. On the day the apocalypse came, he immediately turned into a zombie. He was so angry that he lay in bed for 10 days. He was about to become a zombie at the beginning. So what was the standard space given to his protagonist? He was so angry that he couldn't speak. He only knew ABA ABA. He turned around and saw a girl hugging Chen Xiaofei tightly and crying, "I'm so scared." Chen Xiaofei's face was full of pain, and he wanted to push but couldn't. The other one was crying so hard that he wanted to catch the Captain Qin Yi. But he stepped away and coldly said, "If you can't stand, sit down. Be strong." Then Qin Yi turned to a middle-aged couple and started asking about the situation. It turned out that when the apocalypse broke out, the couple decisively closed the door of the cafeteria and relied on the food inside to survive until now. At this moment, a young man wearing a brand name and a green water ghost came up to him. He licked his face and handed Qin Yi a cigarette, showing off that his name was Onion Dad and that he ran a big company. He promised that as long as he would be escorted home first, he would definitely thank him profusely. Who would have thought that the next second, he would lower his voice and add with a lewd expression, "Those are the girls I brought out to play with. As long as you send me home, they can play with you as long as you want." As soon as he finished speaking, Qin Yi's eyes turned cold for a moment. The next second, he smiled instead. He stared at Onion and asked slowly where he lived. Onion thought that his heartbeat would immediately hit the door. "K-City, Sanyang Trading is my dad's company." Qin Yi nodded and smiled wider. "Oh, I know," but his words changed and he was self-deprecating. "But buddy, K-City has become an occupied area. The last batch of survivors were just transferred yesterday. It is now an empty city. Not only that," Qin Yi followed up with another stab. "He can be called the first person to popularize the law in the last days. There is also the crime of prostitution. Let's learn more about it. Inducing Ronglio to introduce others to prostitution constitutes the crime of organizing prostitution. However, it is punishable by a fixed term imprisonment of not less than 5 years but not more than 10 years. Understand this." Onion's face instantly flushed and turned white. The team members next to him all laughed. Chen Xiaofei, who was being entangled, also ran away quickly with a look of fear on his face. After Qin Yi finished the popular science, he immediately put away his smile and showed his chest. He pointed at the group of young people with a tablet and yelled, "Listen up. Now is not the time to be serious about filming." The group of people who contrasted with his righteousness were more like mud. Then Qin Yi directly threw out 2 options. The first is the left-behind service area and the headquarters will send people to pick them up. But the downside is that mutated creatures may appear at any time. The faces of the survivors who had been so excited just now suddenly fell down. The second one was to find someone who could drive and follow their team on the road. Qin Yi promised to protect them as much as possible and could even send 2 people to ride with them. But he also emphasized that the situation on the road was unknown and that one had to stay calm. However, Qin Yi's fierce look was too scary. The survivors hesitated for a moment, but they had no choice. Of course, Qin Yi also thought in his heart that the first rule of the base is to never give up on any human being. He had no intention of caring if he was the bad guy who died. Seeing that the atmosphere was solidified, Wang Hu stepped forward and sent the beauty a paper apocalyptic survival manual. Now everyone had a clearer understanding of the end of the world. It turned out that they were trapped in the service area and had no idea that the outside world had been turned upside down. The middle-aged couple named Zhao Gang and Lu Chunhui were the first to make the decision. Not only did they always do their duty, but they were also warm-hearted. Now they even decisively stated that they would follow the team. Zhao Gang patted his chest and promised that I can drive and my wife can too. In the past, we drove a large cargo truck and I could show off even if the truck broke down. He pointed at his 8-year-old daughter Xiaoya beside him and sighed. As long as you are willing to take our family of 3. Lu Chunhui also hurriedly added, I can also cook and organize any activities. I dare to beat those crazy people. I even killed a pig. The sincerity of this couple made everyone laugh. Even Kong Tang, who was hiding aside, couldn't help but peek. Lu Chunhui noticed Kong Tang and thought he was in poor health. So he hurriedly said that the little girl looked bad. So he asked my daughter to be his companion. My daughter is very good at taking care of people. Who can refuse cruelly after saying this? Bai Shu smiled and agreed. Don't worry, as long as you are willing to come with us, we will take you for a ride. Qin Yi also smiled and glanced at Kong Tang, but Kong Tang shook his head in embarrassment, saying that he was very capable and did not need to take care of him. In this way, Zhao Gang's family of 3 successfully joined the team. With him as an experienced driver, the safety factor was greatly improved. Everyone stayed in the service area to rest that night. It rained heavily outside and the night was stable. The next day, after the rain, the sky cleared up. After reading the manual, all the survivors were too frightened to stay. They all decided to follow the team. But Kong Tang had just emerged from the blanket, and he reached out his hand to touch the soft blanket in a daze with a messy head. As a result, his hand slipped and touched Qin Yi's thigh next to him. Qin Yi woke up in the next second. The two of them stared at each other. Is it too late to say that it was not intentional? Kong Tang was about to withdraw his hand, but Qin Yi grabbed it and squeezed his palm before letting go. He only heard his hoarse voice that he had just woken up from. Okay. Eat my tofu early in the morning. The sound was so crisp and itchy that it made the little zombie's face turn red. So he concentrated his wits and directly covered Qin Yi's head with his blanket. He was about to destroy the corpse and eliminate traces. As long as he couldn't be seen, he wouldn't do it. Immediately after Kong Tang got up, he disappeared on the spot. He ran out to find Bai Shu and Wang Hu, but Qin Yi's muffled laughter came from behind. He didn't even bother to pull off the blanket, turn over and go to sleep. Bad guy. Kong Tang knew that these people always liked to tease him and treated him like a child, but he wasn't really stupid, he just reacted a little too slowly. He groaned in his heart and turned around and walked towards the parking lot outside. In the parking lot, Bai Shu and Wang Hu were taking Zhao Gang to modify a bus. The other survivors were working hard to collapse the bus. On the other side, Lu Chunhui was taking her daughter in the kitchen. Knead all the flour into steamed buns and prepare to take them on the road. The entire service area is busy. At this moment, the little zombie stood on the wet ground and suddenly had an idea. He looked at the huge parking lot and began to move quietly. Bai Shu turned around suddenly and almost screamed in fright. He found that Kong Tang was wandering around alone. Why didn't Qin Yi look at him? What if he was swallowed by the mutated creature? He ran over in a hurry, but was shocked by what he saw. Kong Tang is collecting the train. How big is your space? Bai Shu watched helplessly as he waved his hand and another big train disappeared in an instant. Kong Tang turned around when he heard the movement. When he saw it was Bai Shu, he lowered his head and took out the tablet to poke at me. I'm fine. You can do it by yourself. You can wait for me to go back. This simple and cool hanging made Bai Shu dumbfounded. He immediately rang the contactor and called Qin Yi directly. No, what if something happens to our team's granary? Qin Yi, your first love doesn't care. I don't care if the mutated creature takes him away. Xiao Sang sighed helplessly. He was too lazy to care. He turned around and loaded up all the big cars that looked pleasing to the eye in the parking lot. Anyway, the manual said that all resources in Mo Shirley were important. As soon as he finished collecting this place, Qin Yi arrived. This guy had a few long legs and stepped in front of him. Without saying a word, he lifted him up and easily clamped it on his waist like a small doll. Have you finished collecting? Save some space for food, ammunition and medicine. Okay, honey. You were getting more and more courageous and dare to wander around by yourself. Kong Tang glanced at the empty parking lot. If he hadn't collected all the ones he liked, he would have really wanted to struggle a few times. But force could only defeat him, so he simply smashed him and let him slip back. Qin Yigong put him down. After waking up, Chun Xiaofei came over with his head on the chicken coop. Squad leader, where have you been this morning? I'm hungry. As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Chunhui came out with several large bowls of steaming handmade noodles. Who is hungry? I have noodles here. They just arrived in the morning. They are delicious and strong. When Chun Xiaofei heard this, he immediately left the empty hall and rushed towards Lu Chunhui. Shenzi, I want a bowl. Qin Iza reminded Lu Chunhui to bring as much clean well water as possible. Water supply is a big problem on the road. But at this moment, a discordant voice sounded. The survivor named Cyan looked disgusted. Lu Chen's face was too soft today. Before Qin Yi opened his mouth, Chun Xiaofei exploded first. You still yelled when you had something to eat. I asked you to chew some grass roots to see if you still barked. It turned out that there were 6 people in Onion's group and they didn't even do any work. Qin Yi thought Lu Chunhui was kind-hearted, but he laughed out loud. Turned out that it was those people who gave the money. Very good. Qin Yi liked such honest people, but he immediately named Lu Chunhui. Now the money is just a piece of waste paper. Don't spoil them anymore. Lu Chunhui nodded with gratitude. At this time, the empty hall and the disputes outside Mei Lihui's consciousness were immersed in his own Rubik's Cube space. What surprised him was that the large trucks that had just been brought in were actually full of things, including a truck of flour, a truck of hardware accessories, and a truck of fruit. Unfortunately, all of them were rotten. However, when he saw the last vehicle, his eyes widened instantly. It turned out to be a 9.6-meter-long Xiang's truck. It was filled with thousands of express packages. Do you still remember the happy little funeral of unpacking the express delivery? He casually took out something and it turned out to be a cute rabbit headband. He put it on his head without thinking. At this moment, Qin Yi turned around and couldn't laugh or cry. He looked at the pink and white rabbit headband on his head, which turned out to be cute. He couldn't help but stretched out his hand and pinched the fluffy rabbit ears. He looked at him with a guilty look and then stuffed 2 small express boxes into his arms. This was to make him join in the crime. Qin Yi immediately guessed that these parcels came from the express truck where he posted the parcel yesterday. He casually opened 2 of them and found out that one was a mechanical keyboard and the other was a Buddhist bead bracelet. It's not interesting, but Kong Tang actually took out a mobile phone and a gold bracelet. Such luck. Kong Tang's eyes lit up when he saw the gold bracelet and he raised his hand to put it on his wrist. Qin Yi's face changed and he quickly stopped him. Don't bring food. Don't take the road. Do you understand? There is gold in the troubled world now. If someone takes you away, it will be over. Only then did the little zombie take back the space with confidence. There is a special compartment for jewelry. Qin Yi was worrying about it here, but Chun Xiaofei quietly touched it over there. He thought the 2 of them were stealing something good, but when he got closer and took a closer look, he was instantly shocked. Damn it, where did you get the express delivery? Qin Yi has begun to doubt life. He pointed at the loot in the empty hall and said heartbrokenly, 5 express delivery. He opened 2 mobile phones and 1 preset key. As for me, between a Russian matryoshka doll and a ceramic shield, there is no harm without contrast. Chun Xiaofei burst out laughing. It was at this moment that Shikong Tang slowly finished typing. It said on the rising tablet that it was collected by a courier truck outside. This half-beat delay directly made Chun Xiaofei laugh out loud. Chun Xiaofei took the courier from the empty hall. I couldn't help itching and started to take it apart. When I opened the belt and wallet, they were all international brands. He exclaimed instantly. If it weren't for the end of the world, it would cost tens of thousands of dollars. When he lowered his head, he saw a certain express delivery. No wonder they are all good stuff. Qin Yi didn't want to play anymore after reading it. He pinched Kong Tang's little face and stared at him when he looked angry. So fun to complain when you're depressed. However, the happy time is always short-lived. Just when they were about to set off, the 11th hour came again. Yang Tsong's group actually offered to take Qin Yi's off-road vehicle. He also said that being active will always lead to sitting down. Qin Yi's eyes suddenly turned cold and he said, if you keep talking nonsense, get out of here. Yang Tsong shut up instantly and several companions quickly